possibility, but we don't fly taking a chance. We put safety before schedule, and this is a particular issue for long-haul carriers. We're dealing with long flight times, we're dealing with long distances, and we're dealing with multiple jurisdictions. Obviously, the case can often be different for particularly a European carrier who may be flying short-haul, point-to-point services in an area that's clearly not been affected by ash or has been determined not to be affected by ash. But there are even questions as to the degree to which certain areas have been affected by ash. And in addition, there is confusion where, for example, certain areas of airspace may be opened or airports may be opened, but the overall conditions have not been opened properly. For example, in Austria, it's open for business, but there is still a notice to aviators that it's not a particularly safe area to fly. Under those sorts of conditions, we will not take a chance with our passengers. What people need to understand is, there are relatively high booking levels for the coming month. Our priority will be to provide people who are currently booked on the most immediate flights the ability to continue to travel on those flights, and then obviously to deal with hardship cases. And then, of course, if there's spare capacity on those flights, we'll obviously try and fill it up with people who have been delayed. And as I've said in previous days, we are looking at things like the possibility of mounting additional flights and the like. But, again, it's very much dependent on what is open where and when. Well, look, I'm happy for us to be accused of being overly conservative wherever safety is concerned, but the fact is I think we're dealing with an apples and oranges situation here. These European carriers, and indeed some of the other carriers who are preparing to operate, are not necessarily operating the same types of services to us, and to the extent that they might be intending to operate long-haul services, they are operating them without necessarily the normal guarantees that people will get to certain points. And you've also got to remember, for those operators who are operating short-haul services, which are the vast bulk of the 29,000 services a day that are being offered in Europe, it's often a lot easier to predict where they'll be flying, and they'll often be flying in sectors that are not necessarily affected by the drift of ash. Whereas when we have to go across an entire continent or an entire ocean, obviously the wider area you travel, the more chance that you've got, and the more risk that you've got of flying into ash, and we're not intending to fly into ash.